I'm James Barfield with the Your Urban Connection program. And this is our first program of the year, and it's going to be a good one. We're going to present to you news you can use. Now, ever since the death in the juvenile detention facility of one Cedric Lofton, the spotlight has been on the Cedric County Juvenile Justice System. A lot of people are wanting to know just who is really responsible for CJ's death. And I'm going to tell you something tonight that you haven't heard. And I'm going to answer that question for you. The people that are responsible for that death are all part of the system. That's right, the system. And I'm going to share information with you right now that nobody wants to talk about. First of all, I'm going to tell you, the system includes the governor of Kansas, every member of the U.S. House of Representatives of Kansas, and every member of the Kansas Senate. Those are the people most responsible for the death of CJ Lofton. Now, we're not excluding law enforcement nor the district attorney, but they're all part of the system. Now, let me tell you why I say that. I'm going to share some information with you. About a year ago, there was an assessment done of the Kansas Juvenile Justice System in the state of Kansas. And it was done by a Washington, D.C. based company called the National Juvenile Defense Center. Okay? They did an assessment of the entire Kansas juvenile justice system. And they issued an assessment report. And here it is. Now, as I said, every member of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate is aware of this assessment and this report. And they've done nothing about it. And this report outlined some major problems such as the system is underfunded, it's understaffed, and now it's under fire. Okay, it's under fire. Yeah, let me just share with you some of the key findings of this assessment that they did here in the state of Kansas. While Kansas has succeeded in ensuring that nearly every youth who faces charges in the delinquency court is represented by counsel in most stages of the proceedings, the quality of defense young people receive far too often does not fulfill constitutional obligations, does not meet national standards, nor satisfy professional responsibility requirements. Kansas juvenile defenders do not have the structure, the training, the support, or compensation needed to develop an expertise in juvenile defense and provide Kansas youth with the representation to which they are entitled and the Constitution demands. Recent changes to state law have increased diversion and decreased youth incarceration by limiting the availability of detention and commitment. However, the state provides a less than complete continuum of alternative options. And defender advocacy in detention, disposition, and post-disposition hearings is lacking, with defenders who too often fail to offer or become familiar with alternative options for their clients. In other words, folks, most of these juvenile defenders are being railroaded through the system. Listen, far too often, juvenile defense attorneys engage in the plea process with little to no true investigation or advocacy to challenge the allegations. And in some areas, the defense contracting system may even incentivize expediting pleas and a lack of strong defense advocacy. The innumerable fines, fees, and costs levied on young people and families by the juvenile court system interferes with youth's right to counsel and access to diversion, and it burdens youth and families with insurmountable debt that follows them long after the young person's involvement in the juvenile legal system has ended. In other words, people who are on low or limited income or saddled with fees, court costs, or whatever that is way beyond their means, and they're paying this off long after these juveniles become adults. Despite the recognized harm and trauma caused by shackling and the nationwide movement toward limiting or eliminating the shackling of youth, Kansas juvenile courts continue to indiscriminately shackle young people, and the defenders largely fail to recognize the harm or advocate to unshackle their young clients. And finally, this is a big one. Although racial disparities in Kansas juvenile legal system exceed national rates, juvenile defenders do little to challenge the biases driving these disparities and rarely raise racial justice arguments in defense of the youth. Okay? Now, I'm going to read just a little bit more to you here, and then I have some information that I think you'll be interested in. This group out of Washington, D.C., the National Juvenile Defense Organization, made some recommendations to the state of Kansas as to how they can improve their juvenile justice system. And here they are. Implement a strong specialized system of juvenile defense. Institute statewide standards and oversight of juvenile defenders and of county level juvenile defense delivery systems. Ensure that youth have access to counsel at all stages of the juvenile court process, including for post-disposition and appeals. Eliminate fines, fees, and costs associated with juvenile court involvement. And finally, eliminate racial disparities in the juvenile court system. Now, has any of this been done? Absolutely not. Now, the question has to be answered, why would the Kansas, legislatures, why would the Kansas legislators ignore this information? And why would they pretend they don't even know about this? Could it be that these juveniles don't vote because you have to be 18 to vote? And normally when you don't vote, you get ignored. That's one reason. Number two, could it be because a large percentage of these people during the juvenile system are Black and brown? Think about it. You know, there has to be a reason why the fact that the government right now, as we speak, the governor has a budget surplus in the millions of dollars, and yet we can't find the money to provide adequate juvenile defense and run an efficient juvenile justice system here in Cedric County as well as the rest of the state. Something is wrong. Now, the state legislature, legislators will be returning to Topeka on Monday. This should be #1 priority when they return to Topeka on Monday. Ladies and gentlemen, this system that provided the death of C.J. Lofton was a ticking time bomb just waiting to happen, and it finally happened. And I can assure you right now that without sufficient attention that is dedicated to this inadequate system that is underfunded, it is understaffed, okay, and it is not proficient or efficient in the way it handles our youth. You just read what they said there, that most of these youth are railroaded through a plea bargaining system with little to no investigation of the allegations or charges that are levied against them. Come on, how can you win? Now, what they will tell you is that they don't have the money to pay attorneys a decent price, decent compensation to represent these youth. I say bullcrap, total bullcrap. It's not a priority. They don't vote. The majority are Black and brown. So you don't care. And that's the way our justice system is in this country. It is two-tiered. You have one system of justice for the rich and another one for the poor, most of whom are Black and brown in this country. We can do better than this. But it's up to people like you and I to let the legislators know that while this might be low priority as far as they are concerned, we place high priority on our youth, because after all, these people are the future of our country. They deserve more than what they're getting. If you don't pay attention, if you don't fund this program, if you don't improve staffing in your system, it's just a matter of time before we have another C.J. Lofton situation. And nobody wants to take responsibility. Everybody wants to kick the can down the road, okay? Place the blame on someone else. It's always someone else's fault. The people that are actually in charge never want to take the blame or accept the blame for anything that they do or cause. I'm James Barfield for your Urban Connection.